Okay, guys, here we go. Here's an article from Coin World. This is dated December 18th of 2017. And trouble ahead at the Fed, and with another one of Trump's moves. Federal Reserve appointee wants to abolish paper money. Move would make it easier for the Fed to lower interest rates to less than zero and spur spending. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the agency that prints Federal Reserve notes, offers bags of shredded currency as novelty products. A nominee to the Federal Reserve Board reportedly has suggested eliminating or reducing the amount of paper money in circulation. If I didn't mention it, this article comes to us from the courtesy of Coin World, and it has been written by Arthur L. Friedberg, special to Coin World. Okay, on a December 5th story in Bloomberg Business Week by Peter Coy, as well as in a few other online financial journals, focused on Goodfriend's belief that abolishing or reducing the status of paper currency would make it easier for the Fed to lower interest rates to less than zero. He thinks the existence of cash makes this harder to do because as soon as rates are lowered to sub-zero levels, people would logically withdraw cash from their bank accounts, which now would have become income reducing, and keep it in their mattress and elsewhere. He therefore proposes that high denomination bills could be phased out, and if that is not enough, he says paper money could be abolished. He also has written that if negative interest rates on deposits were in force, the incentive would be strong to spend whatever was in an individual's account. Okay, I don't know about you, but these kinds of stories and these kinds of people make me absolutely crazy. And the fact that Trump put somebody like this on the Federal Reserve tells you exactly what he is thinking about your money.
I know. What do you want to do today?
I don't know. What do you want to do today?
He's thinking your money is paper, and he's coming for it. And oh, by the way, Bitcoin will not help you here. Another of his proposed suggestions is currency cards, which are not credit or debit cards, but ones linked to real money straight from the Fed. Ha ha! The value of which the Fed could control electronically. Well, real money, isn't that great? Goodfriend's ideas are well known and are not a joke and have not gone without comment. The Mises Institute, a think tank espousing the Austrian School of Economics and libertarian political theory, asked on December 1st, is Marvin Goodfriend the worst Fed nominee of all time? Earlier, Mises said, given his radical views on monetary policy, it's not hyperbole to suggest that Goodfriend's nomination would represent a genuine danger to the economic well-being of every American citizen, or at least those outside of the financial services industry. Goodfriend's nomination requires Senate confirmation. I presume that has happened, but if it hasn't, don't bust me for it. Here is one other article on Goodfriend. 3 ways Trump's latest pick could really shake up the Federal Reserve. This is from CNBC and written by Jeff Cox, CNBC.com. Let's just go right to the article. Okay, there's this guy smiling like an idiot. If President Donald Trump's nomination of Jerome Powell to lead the Federal Reserve... Oh, wait a minute. Oh, here we go. If President Trump's nomination of Jerome Powell to lead the Federal Reserve was a way of preserving the status quo, his selection of Marvin Goodfriend for another vacancy is a way of challenging it. Fed watchers primarily see Powell as essential to the next leg of an era begun by the current chair, Janet Yellen. The Yellen Fed is looking to unwind slowly and carefully the policies the central bank put into place to pull the economy out of its financial slump. And underline the word slowly. In Goodfriend, the Fed gets someone whose approach to monetary policy and financial system regulation runs counter to 3 core tenets of the current orthodoxy. He believes in tracking inflation aggressively and wants to see the Fed's 2% inflation target codified by Congress as part of rules a rule-based approach to decision-making. That could make him a policy hawk in the field of doves. Anybody who wants to hardwire the inflation control mandate, and not put competent thought into reviewing it is an idiot. Rather than using the balance sheet through programs like quantitative easing as a stimulant, Goodfriend prefers negative rates during downtimes. The next most idiotic concept that has ever been perpetrated, negative interest rates. Where Yellen and her predecessor, Ben Bernanke, have pushed back on congressional attempts to greater Fed oversight, Goodfriend would be more welcoming. My God. Those core beliefs come from the statement Goodfriend, whose nomination was announced late Wednesday, was made in congressional testimony, papers, and statements he made while at the Richmond Fed, likely to gain relatively easy Senate approval and to make one of three Fed governor vacancies take one of three Fed governor vacancies in early 2018, the Carnegie Mellon professor also brings a background steeped in economics that Powell does not. We find it likely that Goodfriend will be a voice for higher rates, doesn't sound like it, and support a faster implementation of a policy normalizing than soon-to-be Jerome Powell. Stephen Myrow, managing partner at Beacon Policy Advisors, said in a note, "This dynamic could present tensions between the two, especially if Goodfriend takes up a more hawkish view towards monetary policy." Goodfriend declined a request for comment. With the current Fed lined up with advocates of gradual but slow rate increase and the unwinding of $4.5 trillion balance sheet already underway, slowly, the opportunity for Goodfriend to sway the current direction will be few. However, Trump will have the opportunity to change the Fed complexion in a substantial way. If he names others who share Goodfriend's views, think former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh or Stanford economist John Taylor, it could be dramatically alter the approach the central bank would take when faced with the next crisis. I would hope they would take no approach, but that is not going to happen because anything they do will be a short-term gain and a long-term loss. The Bernanke-Yellen Fed lowered the target funds rate to near zero and kept it there for 7 years while ballooning the balance sheet through 3 rounds of QE. A Goodfriend-Warsh-Taylor Fed would be more inclined to eschew quantitative easing and take the benchmark rate below zero. Really bad idea. Then raise it in an upcoming if the upcoming data warrant. Goodfriend's nomination also has implications for the pending vice chair slot, and it will make Trump's pick for this position all the more important in terms of ideology, Myrow said. Considering all of this and the fact that Powell is not a monetary economist by training, there could be added risks when it comes to dissent among the 7-member Fed board in the future. Where he could make a difference, inflation could be the area where Goodfriend could have a more immediate impact. Yellen and others have entertained the idea of letting inflation run a little hotter than the 2% target before putting the clamps on. Though that's hardly been the issue lately, with price and particularly wage pressures low, some economists believe that won't last. Indeed, the 2018 Fed could be the one to wrestle with the notion of how high inflation should run. Fed watchers point to a statement Goodfriend made in his congressional hearing earlier this year when he said, "The Fed's history of falling behind the curve on inflation is cause for concern." It is clear throughout his writings that he is more concerned about the Fed not defending its inflation target from the upside, i.e. that the Fed risks falling behind the curve, allowing inflation to rise above target and raising the specter of unanchored inflation expectations and a loss in Fed credibility, that comes with it. Matthew Luzetti, senior economist at Deutsche Bank, said in a note, Goodfriend also has welcomed efforts to bring more congressional oversight on the Fed's policy decisions. During the March hearing where he spoke, he encouraged the 2% inflation target be made a permanent part of the Fed's dual mandate. Part of the process, he said, should be the Fed demonstrating that it's making decisions by measuring such as the Taylor rule developed by John Taylor to gauge where funds rate should be according to prevailing economic conditions. The current Fed funds rate is targeted between 1% and 1.25%. The Taylor rule would put it closer to 3.4%. So I can't figure this guy out. Does he want higher interest rates or negative interest rates? Each of these changes he appears to support in the context of enhancing the Fed's credibility in pursuing the dual mandate, which will in turn enhance the effectiveness of monetary policy. Goodfriend's views likely will find favor with the Republican membership, many of whom express skepticism and distrust of the Fed. Dr. Marvin Goodfriend is a highly respected researcher on monetary and macroeconomics and an impeccable conservative.
No!
Okay, I'm done with this article. Well, there you go. Let's see what the readers of this elimination of paper money have to say. Huh? Okay, in the comments. Reps Johnso, this is a joke, another example of the lunacy of the president's abilities. Pat said, we the people are supposed to be in charge of our own country, but we have a private corporation controlling our economy. We are told that insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, but always getting the same result. But we have a central bank since 1913, and that is when we started to have booms and busts. The Federal Reserve note, an instrument of debt, has lost 98% of its purchasing power. Yes, indeed. Helen Wallace, amazing. They want every transaction electronically trackable. You are right, Helen. That is what they want. When everything is on the grid, everything will be subject to taxation, manipulation, and devaluation. All right? It is not an accident that we are moving to a cashless society, and I wish we weren't embracing it so quickly. But if you have not gotten some money off the grid, here is yet another warning flag that you will need to do so, or be at the mercy of the Federal Reserve and everyone who will have the digits of your accounts. Okay, guys, this is Louie signing out. Thanks for listening. Bye now.